Once upon a time, there was a strange and beautiful land where the usual laws of nature seemed no longer to apply. Winter never visited here, and wealth lay all around, free for the taking. It was a fairy tale place, complete with castles. And when word of such wonders got out, people came to it in droves. They came, and they kept coming, and coming, and coming, and coming, doubling Florida's population every generation since 1940. And they all believed in happy endings, perpetual sunshine, and heavy doses of make-believe. It's no accident that the first Europeans came to Florida looking for the impossible, because people here have believed in the idea of something for nothing ever since. This free ride mentality is most extreme in our state's institutionalized enthusiasm for growth.
The 20th century has produced a new breed of man, a man on the move, curious, alert, with his eyes on the stars and his feet solidly on the ground, living enthusiastically for today, but working hard to turn dreams of a better world into tomorrow's reality. This is his century, fast-moving, full of action and discovery, and this is his city, a modern, vital 20th century city in the heart of an area that is alive with excitement and growth. This is a city in which today's new breed of man can actively pursue his work and his play to the full limits of his capacity.
But that cherished 1960s ideal of a vacation lifestyle for everyone, or at least for middle-class white males with perfectly dressed wives in the suburbs, has worn pretty thin over the years. Despite America's general prosperity in the 1990s, when inflation was low and jobs, spending, and investment all were booming, Florida's median household income dropped from 33rd in the country to 40th by the year 2000. Bank deposits per capita in our state went from 22nd in the whole U.S. to 40th. We're 41st for total state spending and 49th for state spending on education. We're 49th worst for crime, too, but that's actually up a notch from 1990, when we had the highest crime rate in the country. Our parks are crowded, our roads are jammed, our kids are going to school in portable classrooms. In many important respects, life in Florida is getting worse, not better. So why are state leaders still trusting that growth will somehow save us, when growth is looking more and more like the problem instead of the solution? Old-fashioned boosterism at least paid lip service to quality of life issues, like education and protecting the environment. But we'll never reverse Florida's lifestyle decline if we keep believing in fairy tales when we plan our future. Growth and progress are two different things. Growth is just getting bigger. Progress is getting better. The old idea of unlimited growth ignored the obvious fact that living things are not unlimited. Virtually every plant and animal, including us, only grows actively until it reaches maturity, its natural limit. After that, growth stops or greatly slows. If it doesn't, it becomes a disease called cancer. Demographer Lee Bouvier, now teaching at Old Dominion University, lived in Florida for 10 years and co-authored a major study of Florida's population.
Earlier on in the 20th century, population growth was good for Florida. It was sparsely populated. More people meant more jobs and so forth. But unfortunately, that growth kept on going, and by now, population growth is an enormous problem for Florida, as it cannot handle the infrastructure needed for more schools, more highways, more police. And I haven't talked about the tourists, which add millions more. So clearly, Florida has a very big demographic problem, and unless it addresses it very soon from every angle, fertility, domestic migration, international migration, it's just going to get worse and worse. Because by about the year 2020 or so, the baby boomers will be retired, and if the pattern still holds, many of them will be moving to Florida. For example, many people move to Florida not only because of the weather, because it's a low tax state. Well, it's a low tax state because you're not taking care of the problems, the infrastructure. First of all, the people should be aware, and especially the politicians should be aware, that while development sounds great, and the developers are right there to tell you that it's a great thing, there's a limit, and I think we've already passed that limit.
As overbuilt as Florida is now, land with no houses on it isn't wasted. It's just being used for other things, including valuable things like recharging Florida's clean water supply. And it isn't undeveloped at all. These natural systems took millions of years to reach a level of organization and complexity we're only beginning to understand. Before we pave over still more of them, we need to ask if what we're getting in return is worth it. Studies of how we spend our tax dollars show that residential development typically costs about $1.30 for every $1 received in taxes. The same area of vacant land costs only 30 cents for every tax dollar because it uses less services. Natural scenery is as important as theme parks for Florida's tourist-based economy, and it costs our taxes less than a quarter of what residential development costs. That should make a difference in the way local governments do business, but all too often it doesn't. Many of us, like Jody Rozier, think we've already lost more open land than we can spare.
In the term that you see around the nation, a greenway is a corridor of habitat for wildlife movement. It's an area along a river system, a flowway system, so wildlife can move through that. But in Orlando, where I grew up and was born in Orlando, several years ago, the Department of Transportation Turnpike District comes to the community and say, we're going to put a greenway in. But in this case, it was a new 6-lane highway with several toll facilities going through habitat areas, across a Lake Jesup, through its wetland system, and they tried to sell it as greenway as if it was something good. But those of us who lived in the area realized its real name should be Greedy Way, because it costs a lot of money to run, but also everything that's come in afterwards. There's malls, there's cookie cutter subdivisions, we call them. Every little road that led to the greenway has been widened to 4 lanes. This one little road I can't even drive on anymore because there was this beautiful gigantic oak tree in the middle of it, on the side of it. Now that's totally ruined. There's a million stoplights. And what happens is I realized that this beautiful area, Oviedo, is not a small town anymore. It's ruined, and it hurts.
More jobs mean more people, and more people mean more residential development. Jobs will only benefit